This is an open letter to friends. Here's the thing. Um, there is a meme going around on the internet, which everybody liked, and everybody somehow accepted that this is correct. This is it. That's the truth. And the meme was basically showing a 2-year-old boy and a 2-year-old white boy and a 2-year-old black boy with a dark complexion, more pigmentation, holding hands and walking together and say, and the title, the caption is your the caption is that racism does not exist, it's thought. I think that's steer manure, because the idea that racism doesn't exist and is thought is a laughable idea. No, racism does exist. Here, let's start from the plants. Life on your planet started with plants. That we all agree. It wasn't 6,000 years ago. Life was first immobile. Plants flourished for a long time without any animals because they're a more primitive form of life. It's easier to assemble a tree than you can assemble a rabbit. So to assemble a tree, you know those cells with regards to absorption of CO2 and building of food and conversion of CO2 into food by attaching it to other atoms, forming molecules that can be used as a storage for food and expansion. That's the whole business model of a tree. Very primitive cells all doing the same things, maybe three kinds, the leaves and the branches and then the roots, the three different jobs, three different very primitive form of distribution of labor as opposed to a rabbit. So they have come to understand, I just read an article, that the trees, when the roots, the trees of the same variety, when the roots hit each other under the ground, and they form a connection, and because they recognize as self, because they're the same tree, the same type of tree. So what happens is that now they understand that the trees are connected underground, their roots are connected. So if one tree becomes a little more in trouble with regards to water, then even the water that the roots of the other tree has picked up will be diverted to the more thirsty tree to form an equilibrium, because one and the other is not recognized as both are of the same species. They recognize each other and they exchange water and nutrition. That's racism. Trees only helping trees of the same species, that's racism. A very primitive form of racism. That's how you recognize self from the non-self. That's how you recognize self from non-self. If you're willing to, if your roots touch, you bond, that's self. If your roots touch but they don't bond, that's a not self. They have chemicals within them that don't match, so therefore they repel each other. Chemicals, we are talking about in terms of trees. They have, in their systems don't match because of whatever difference chemicals they have. My point is this: because they're different species. Then you move up. Wolves. I kind of doubt wild wolves gray wolves would, I kind of doubt they recognize each other by any kind of, just like we can't tell one wolf from the other usually. I have a feeling wolves, maybe there is no visual cue of recognizing self from the other. It's a scent cue. If it's it's a scent cue that is sent to, smells. If he smells of my tribe, I recognize it as self, and I won't start attacking it. And if I do recognize this scent as the scent of my tribe, yeah, you get a free pass. The point is this, that again, that's racism based on scent. There might be wolf, they're all called wolves, but because each tribe, each wolf pack has a different scent, they fight each other over territory because they don't recognize self and the other. They do recognize self and the other based on scent. That's racism based on scent. What you think? Why would wolves fight each other over a piece of territory? They're all wolves. Why would they be fighting? Well, from the way they see it, their world is a world of scent. So based on scent, they recognize home and away, self and the non-self, and based on that they attack or give a pass to. So this race thing is much more primitive in nature than you give credit for it. It's all racism. The wolves are racist between different wolf packs, attack each other. The trees don't help each other if the roots don't recognize each other as self. So my point is this, that then you go back and you find out the older books they are, religious books, texture, the older they are, the more racist they are. The older the religious text is, the more racist it is. Do you see the problem? What you see in Israel and what you have seen in the other parts of the Middle East, these are wars based on a very ancient text. You see what I'm saying? So the more primitive man, I'm sure the 2001 Space Odyssey, the monkeys, again, they recognize they're more sophisticated. The gorillas, the monkeys, and our ancestors, they were more sophisticated, so they had both scent cues and visual cues to recognize our tribe from their tribe. Eventually, some tribe were closer to the sun on your planet, they turned darkish, and some tribes are farther away from your sun on your planet, they turn whitish. But there's still different tribes of human, but just like different tribes of wolves don't recognize each other's authority. Different tribes of humans don't want to submit to the wolves from the other tribe. You see, the more what I'm trying to say is that if we like to go back to the meme, so if you like to go back to the meme, the two boys, white and black, that were holding hands, that's the age that they barely recognize their image as self in the mirror. I don't think before, the moment the kid recognizes self in the mirror and mommy and daddy, and self and mommy and daddy have the same complexion, anything outside of what the kid understands from this is the normal complexion, what I see in the mirror. Them other ones, they are they're not my complexion. This is very innate, just like the wolf smells his wolf pack, a very young wolf, just 2 months old, 3 months old, learns the smell of the pack. learns to stay away from any area that doesn't smell like his pack if he wants to keep his head on his shoulder. So my point is this: you learn home and away very early, right as soon as you recognize yourself in the mirror. That's when you recognize this is the home game and that's the away game. So in other words, um, in order to not to be racist, you got to work on it. It's sort of like not eating dogs. It's a good idea. Let's not eat dogs because it's an idea. It's like, why eat sheep but not dogs? It's an idea based on some observation and some intelligence cue that they're getting from dogs, that they're more intelligent than the lower forms. We feel kind of upset that we are taking the life of a very intelligent creature. Do you see what I'm saying? So we have developed that much relationship with a dog that we haven't developed with humans from other tribes. So we cry over our dog dying, but we are, because the other people who are dying are not from our tribe. We're not really, that's a racist thing. And what I'm trying to say is that's the primitive format. All animals do that. In a primitive format, all animals do that. It starts from the trees. They recognize home and away, self and unself, and if our roots pass by each other and they're of the same, they will join, become one. But the point is this: and up the food chain on your planet, every one of these creatures, including humans, have racism innately in them. You have been able to, you know, avoid your racism towards dogs, justified not being racist against dogs because of, some affection that you have felt for them. But you do recognize that innately you're racist. Not out of the womb, but the moment self is recognized in the mirror, or the time they didn't have mirrors. Well, the guy who was born in the tribe had the rest of the tribe to look at to recognize, okay, these people with this color shade skin, this is part of my tribe. There's no mirror, but I see what I'm surrounding with, and I look at my arm, and you see, I see the form, the shape, the complexion, and blah blah blah. Therefore, self-recognition happens without a mirror. But the point is this: from the moment self is recognized, the creature becomes racist because it feels safer with its own than with the other, because it recognizes its own in the mirror, just saw the own in the mirror. So the normal primitive reaction in human being is racism, just like it is in all other species of plant and animal life on your planet. The whole idea of graft only happens if the graftee and the grafter recognize each other. In a tree, graft only happens if these two recognize each other. They don't fight each other. Again, that would be not racist. That would be they recognize the same race, the same being, the same essence. So my point is this: you have to recognize that racism is innate in every one of us. And if we had any Neanderthal, believe me, Neanderthals would have been much racist than any other human beings towards humans in general, because they were Neanderthal. They also can see themselves in the mirror. So what I'm trying to say is they would really hate you. humans. If Neanderthals were around, they would really hate you because at least they recognize another Neanderthal of the next tribe, but they don't recognize you at all. You're a different shape. So Neanderthals were really racist because, and I'm sure humans were very racist towards Neanderthal because two human tribes recognize each other, but neither one could, could see the shape of the Neanderthal's body structure is not of his own or his tribesmen. So that's the enemy because they don't even look like us. Now they would, but what remains, the Homo sapiens, I believe they call him. What remains is at least they all look the same more or less. There are no Neanderthal-looking people out there. But still, they recognize differences in the color of skin, in spirituality, in essence. They start recognizing all kinds of differences. So my point is this, that you innately, at the moment you look in the mirror and recognize home and away, self and the other, is the moment you become racist. And for good reason, because you recognize the other, you become paranoid, and they say only the paranoid survive. So basically you become racist, therefore you survive. Humans who have survived, these are the descendants of people who are very racist. Because these are the guys who survived. These are the guys who attacked first. Be paranoid and attack first. Poor Iraqis, where the fuck would they have attacked? With what? With missiles that couldn't reach, the Red Sea. Where would they go? Who would they attack? It's sort of like we have to go attack them because so they won't attack us. Like, that's the whole idea of this. Is the paranoid species survives and the rest don't. And the more paranoid you are, the better your chances of survival. But it's a shitty life because although you might survive, but it's a shitty life. You're living 100 years in fear of being attacked. You can please go look at different embassies of Uncle Sam around the world, and from the outside it looks like a maximum security prison. The United States embassy in almost anywhere in the world, because they have put security surmount. Security is the most important thing. So based on that, they have built what looks from outside looks like a prison. I have a feeling it looks like a prison from the inside as well. Why? So if anybody thinks we prevent any damage if we are attacked. I'm sorry. Why would you be attacked? Why isn't the why American embassy all over the United States relationship? Whoever becomes a manager. Here's the thing. Let's hope Mr. Kennedy. Here's the thing, sir. You want to have American embassy in Beijing as a park, people coming and going. You want to have such a relationship that you don't have to build a U.S. embassy in, I don't know, wherever. An embassy that looks like a prison, maximum security prison. Why is it your relationship with these others so bad that you have to imprison your employees to prevent harm? Why is the relationship bad? Have you been trying to fuck them up the ass? Well, maybe if you stop trying to fuck them up the ass, maybe you wouldn't have to worry about being attacked. And to have such a, you're imagining in 100 years, you were hoping 100 years ago, you were hoping 100 years from now there are, embassies are all open and people, since it's like a park. U.S. embassy is a park, and it would be a park if other parts of the planet didn't feel they're getting fucked up the ass. That means, an ounce of fairness towards what's yours and what's mine. That ounce of fairness goes a long way. Dude, if you have to wield your veto in United Nations, that means that ounce of fairness is not there. If you have to, one country, with the help of the fucking British, one country stands in the face of the rest of the planet, 5% of the population of the planet stands against 95% of the population, and says, nope, that colonial system over there is a good idea. Fuck you. Get over yourself. Really? 5% population of Earth, well, not even 5%. Most Americans are not really for genocide or bombing refugee camps or just sniping people left and right just because they were walking. Most human beings are not for that. Why is you know why is it a surprise to anyone that there are protests? Why is that a surprise? What do you mean they attacked? They had a reason to attack. They were pushed out of their homes. Mr. Glenn Beck. Yes, October 7th, October 17th, October whatever, October something. They attacked, but did they have reason to attack? They were pushed out of their homes. They had lands, they had homes, they have ancestral homes. They have been pushed out because they have been considered by the Israeli government as persona non grata. Persona non grata just because, you're brown, you're too brown and too Muslimish looking like, and we don't have no need for you in our land. Move out. So when you push people out of their land, do they have the right to attack? I'm sorry, would the British not attack anybody who tried to invade the British island? Would the British would just sit back and say, yeah, of course, you folks Russians, please come on in, you can take over London. Even the properties that the Russians legally bought in London, whether on water or on land, they have been all now confiscated by the British government. This is sort of like, this is our island. You fucking can't bring your Russian money over here and buy our land. Although they took their money, but then said, no, we have your money and we have the land. And we have nukes. Now come and get your land. So the point is this is all racist. Why is racist? Because they have gone back to their primitive roots. The British, the Brexit was going back to our primitive roots. The upper class of the British Empire were happy with their imperial arrangements with Uncle Sam. They were just there in the European Union to try to fuck things up, try not to make it work. And then once everything failed, the British pulled out, hoping that by pulling out, it will fail. The British, these British killed millions of their own that they consider non grata, send them to other people's lands. Before finding a way to send British criminals to Australia and the Americas, before that, the British there is this expression, they say there is a ship of fools. Apparently this is what they do. The British island, in order to save their resources for the smart people, they would fill their crazies onto ships and send them, on a very shitty ship. They would send them out, sort of like, okay, I understand you're another human beings. I don't want to put a bullet in your head because also bullet is expensive. So I'm going to just put you in a ship and send you off. Go ahead. If you can go land in France and survive, if you can go land in Spain and survive, good for you. We don't need you. This is how the British treated their own people. The British are not citizens, the British are subjects. Subject to approve of a few families on top, approving them or wanting to put them in a boat and sending them off. Julian Assange is one of the people that the British, caught and they want to put on a boat and send off to the Americas. They're still doing it. The troublemakers, the criminal, the stupid, the crazy, they are all on the boat. Before we used to send them to Spain, France, and you know the Baltics. Then later on, they started sending them to Australia and South America. Ship of fools, all kept on landing. These are fools, the criminals and the. So these ship of fools kept on landing in first all over Europe, the British fools all over Europe, and then all over the world. So it's understandable what remains in an island when you keep getting rid of the fools, will become a very intelligent island. Of course it becomes. Of course it does. Because you keep eliminating and you're not killing them. You're sending them off to other people's land, and eventually these people want to show their worth and bring the queen to that land. So they did with India and Southeast Asia and in Africa. They want to show their worth to the queen who kicked them out because they were criminal, stupid, or crazy. So they become a British colony to show their worth to the queen who just kicked them out a few generations ago. Anyway, my point is this. Racism is very native to human nature, to animal nature, to everything. If life exists, it's conflict, and once there is conflict, the conflict doesn't happen between one race, normally, between one kind of trees. One kind of tree fills the whole planet. Done. It happens between different trees. Competition and recognizing self from the other race. It starts from there, all the way up the food chain. So the native nature of human being after age 5, 6 is to be racist. Have you seen 5, 6-year-olds who, unfortunately, if they're, with a black family, a 5, 6-year-old, around that age range, that understands self, and at that age that just understands self and the other, but still can't recognize that the other is also okay. That's the age when you see a black kid from a black family suddenly a nice old white guy or nice old white woman goes to give a hug to the black kid, and the black kid is all shook up because doesn't see self in the other, doesn't see mommy and daddy in the other. Same goes with the white kid. When a black lady tries to hug a little kid, white kid of over 5, 6, suddenly at that age, it still shows the reaction, can't hide the reaction. He hasn't been told that it's okay. That's another human being. It's just a different complexion. They can't hide it. Hasn't been told yet. So gets really scared and starts crying when he or she sees a person of a different race in very close proximity. So my point is this. You're racist to begin with. That's innate. At 5, it starts. The moment you recognize home and away. Now, what do you do with that is that the only thing that will prevent it from getting out of proportion is that if you go back to your old textbook, as I said, the older the textbooks are, the more racist they are, because the primitive man was racist. The Neanderthals and the humans, the primitive Neanderthals and the primitive humans were racist. They were all racist until it reached you. Of course, you're racist. At age 5, it starts. Now, the only thing that can fix this is education. Education means real education. It means, for heaven's sakes, send out from your educational system, interesting people have to come out from your educational system. If interesting people don't come out of your educational system, then people who are interested in things, if interested people do not come out of your educational system, then what have you done? What is the purpose then, going around the circle? You're not producing the best that you can from your educational system, but then you are somehow deciding on some matters on the other side of the planet, which is a local matter, which should be handled locally, peacefully and locally. You take sides. This is racism. The guy that says it's Ukrainians who are dying, not our sons and daughter, that's just racism up in your face. Sort of like, oh, these folks don't recognize home and away. They don't recognize home and away. You see what I'm saying? They recognize home and away, and they follow through, and the result is a very racist outcome, because they keep going back to their primitive books, the Bible and the Quran and the Torah and the Gita, and the Hindus have gone back to their holy book. Well, the Hindu holy book is very racist, extremely racist. I mean, the caste system is part of their holy structure. Caste system is racism within the same race. Old ideas are not necessarily good ideas, folks. Old ideas are not necessarily good, because, going back to these books, it's not a good idea. Especially because you pick and choose what you go back to. This King James Bible is the one version of Bible. There were like 12 different versions of Bible, and everybody wrote himself a story. And by their own admission, these stories have been written by people who lived 100 years after Jesus, or within 100 years after Jesus. Are you fucking kidding me? It's stories, myths, mythology that some have written. It's sort of basically they have written science fiction. You can say each one of the Bible chapters is a piece of great science fiction, or Quran, or these are people have sat down and written down stories, good stories, great stories, but mostly science fiction, and a little mythology thrown in for good measures. So the older you go to, the more racist these books become. That the Hindu religion is older than Judaism. That's even more racist. That's a religion that does racism within the same race. That's the caste system. So the point is this: please don't go back so far to your old books. It's not a good idea. Those books, whichever they are, however they are, I mean, Bible, we know it talks about slaves and the black slaves and the brown slaves and the white slaves. We know that. It's there in Bible. We've heard enough to know that it's there. I can't give you the verse number and verse. I can't give you paragraph and verse. And Torah, I mean, from what I see in the news that or on the internet, that a lot of these teachers of Torahs are straight out badass racism. A lot of these teachers of Torahs is just straight out in your face racism. Sort of like, everybody else is a tool. And that's okay because we are the chosen one. Are you fucking kidding me? How racist can you get when you consider and other races as your tools? I mean, you can consider a sheep a tool, a cow a tool, because it's a tool that does some work for you, and then you kill it and fills your stomach. That's a tool. Your I'm sorry, your holy books. I think you should put them all aside. I don't. You don't need to go to mythology to come up with a book that shows you how to live well. You don't need to go back to mythology. You can literally sit together, a bunch of, you know, very well-educated people. You sit them down and say, okay, write an instruction of how people should live based on what we know that works. Based on what we know that works. New York City works. You see brown and the black and the white, and they're all, doing something over there. New York City works, and it has worked for 100 years. Why can't New York City be repeated in Israel? Because of racism. Because they have gone back to a very old scripture, which is, as we said, very racist, and therefore bad ideas. As I said, it's not even the worst old scripture, living old scripture. The Hindus' scripture is much more racist. And going back to it is a very bad idea, which they're trying to do, Mr. Moody is trying to do with the RSS. Going back to the religion is not a good idea because religious books are very racist. If you really get into it, you can find justification for just about everything. These folks just found a justification for killing babies that, if they are of this ethnicity and this pigmentation, it's okay. They're subhuman. That's ideas from that old book, which is a bad idea. How is it that the Uncle Sam's managers see that when the natives of the land go to their old religion of bad ideas, how is it that you see that them going to their bad ideas books, Quran, how is it that you see that as problematic, but you don't accept that Israel going back to the holy book, that is not problematic? You either agree that going back to holy books is a bad idea, or you don't agree with that concept. If you do agree with that concept, then you should be, against a, a, a theocracy like Israel in the Middle East, because you say, oh, going back to those books of bad ideas is a bad idea. So we are not going to support a government that has gone to the book of bad ideas, a very old book, Bible or Torah or Gita or Sita or Pita, a book of bad ideas, very racist ideas, because the primitive format of human beings, the zeros and ones, we already went over it, the zeros and ones of human beings is racist. The zeros and ones of life form on earth is racist. That's how you recognize self from the other, and that's how you survive, by trying to subdue the other. Because if you don't subdue the other will subdue you. That's the whole idea. But the idea of a enlightened human is that they do still recognize race. That's the problem. The progressive should not try to, you know, say that, if you just don't do anything about it, it will be fine because I'm not racist. Eh, no, we're all racist. You have to literally work on it to try to not be racist. I'm racist because, I recognize home and away. I want to be safe, so I recognize home as safer. That's the whole nature of things. That's how nature works. So racism is a survival mechanism. Survival mechanism. So my point is this. We are all racist, let's face it. Don't go to the book of bad ideas like the Torah and the Quran and the Gita and the Sita and the Pita. And, just have some intelligent people sit together and write a religious book. If you need to associate a book with God and religion, and if you need to associate a book with some form of a deity, go with, hiring some very intelligent people to write a new one for you. As I said, Neanderthals don't exist anymore because of racism. Should they have existed? Yeah, I think Neanderthals should have existed. If humans were more intelligent, more educated about their racism, if humans were more educated about the racism, maybe they can recognize their own racism. But then you're trying to force people to be unnatural. The natural thing is to be racist. That's a natural way of things. Survival. You survive because you're racist, because you're paranoid, because you recognize self and other. You see, a lot of these homeless people, a lot of them literally just don't recognize self and the other. That's their, humans consider this as a failure. That their brain somehow failed them, that they don't recognize self and the other. You can say that, but a bunch of homeless people make a much better cohesive society than a bunch of billionaires. You put 10 billionaires in one room and you put 10 homeless people in one room. Homeless people that are not on drugs, normal homeless, there are many of them. You put them in the room, and within an hour, those billionaires are about to eat each other's brains within the hour. But the homeless people are just sharing and having fun, and if you just give them some food, they sit around, they share, they eat, they have fun. And the millionaires start breaking the food dishes over each other's head within the hour. You see the problem here. You're not recognizing these homeless people are the ones who are truly, many of them are not racist at all. They're not even selfish. They haven't cared enough. The idea of more for me, less for thee. That's how you survive. More for me, less for thee. These people didn't understand, didn't recognize that. Why do we have that rule, more for me, less for thee? Because we recognize self from the other. Homeless people, many of them are the ones who have a very big heart, don't recognize self from the other. So they eventually, many others rip them up, rip a new asshole for them, and many of them see bad days because they've been raped in the car dealership and in the mortgage industry and in the banking industry. They've been raped. I mean, overdraft charge of like $30, $40. What is that? So there's no money in it, but he still wants to have his cappuccino. So that's one overdraft fee. Then she buys something for dinner. That's another overdraft fee. so, so you see, it all goes back to recognizing self from the other. And how much value you give to self, and how much more are you willing to devalue the other, to shoot them in the head with sniper in West Asia, just because they are the native flora and fauna and they don't count. And Uncle Sam's managers are steadfast. Yeah, that's the right thing to do. Why? So racism, they are gone back to their primitive. These evangelicals in 20th century, suddenly the progressive, the descendants of Benjamin fucking Franklin, have gone back to Bible. The descendants of that thinker, the scientist Benjamin Franklin, and his pals and buddies who tried to start a country, that their descendants have gone back to a very old book, a 2,000-year-old book. The 2,000-year-old manuscript of bad ideas. The Jewish people over there have gone to a 3,000, like 4,000-year-old prescription book of bad ideas. Now the Hindus over there have gone to their book of bad ideas. The last 20 years, the Muslims have gone back to their book of bad ideas. I'm sorry, a lot of this started with the evangelicals and the establishment of Israel. You folks went to the book of bad after enlightenment of Europe, and then enlightenment of Americas in the 40s and the 50s. Then in the 80s, 70s and 80s, you started going back to the book of bad ideas, religion. Bad ideas. The concept is great. The concept of Jesus was suffering. Suffering of to do good. To plow the land and to grow the tree and to feed thy neighbor. The idea was good. The idea of who he was. But this prescription book, it's not the work of Jesus. Neither is the prescription book of the Muslim. It's the work of God. Just like the Muslims' prescription book is not the work of God. Just like Gita is not the work of whoever they claim it is. It's a book of bad ideas from very old people. We're talking about 3,000-year-old people. This is their book, right? They lived 3,000 years ago. What good ideas did 3,000 years ago people had? Is it they hadn't even invented the wheel? Maybe they invented the wheel. But the point is this: they're very primitive. Why do you think, if the human was primitive then, but in every other sense, why do you think in sense of theology, in sense of the prescription book of how to live well, why do you think that prescription book has to be read again? In every other sense, we don't follow their ways because we advance in technology. We have a calculator, we have a laptop. So in every other way, we have advanced, but we want to, in terms of how to live well, We're going to go to a 3,000-year-old book with machine guns and Scud missiles and cruise missiles, following a 3,000-year-old book. 4,000-year-old book. 5,000. None of these old books have good ideas, folks. And the older the book is, the worse ideas it has. As I said, Hindu book is much older and has much worse ideas than the Christian book. As compared to the Hindus, Christians are kings. In terms of trying to consider some kind of equality within the followers of the book, whoever they may be, whatever color they may be. Even the Mormons, they showed their primitive format of the Mormon religion was no blacks allowed. Then eventually they had to evolve. Okay, blacks can come too, and apparently now the gays can come in too. So it is what it is. It is what it is. These books are bad ideas. The older they are, the worse they are. Please put them aside. Absolute nonsense. They get you killed. And when you kids start, waving your religious flag, they will start waving their religious flag. This is not like, when if I wave my religious flag, you all should gather around me. No, they have their own fucking religion, and those motherfuckers have their own religions, and the other ones have their own religion. You start waving yours, they start waving theirs. Now we have nuclear war.